Let's talk a little bit about the access program first and the nuts and bolts. What is it and what are we paying for?
So the Turnpike Authority in late 2021 announced the Access Program, and it's our largest reinvestment in our turnpike network. And in addition to that, it includes some new turnpikes on the south side of Oklahoma City. But the real bulk of the work is, and the initiator is to do our biggest reinvestment back into our oldest turnpike, the Turner Turnpike, which is I-44 from Oklahoma City to Tulsa. I think that everybody who has driven the Tulsa end of the Turner Turnpike realizes how nice it is to have that 6 lanes, the lighting that exists there at night. And so our real commitment with Access was to deliver that all the way from Oklahoma City to Tulsa to complete that connection between our major metropolitan areas. That was the foundation of this program and a long range look. In addition to that, we knew we needed to widen sections of the Will Rogers Turnpike up to Claremore, where we're starting to see heavier traffic. Also, the metro area turnpikes, both the Kilpatrick in Oklahoma City and the Creek Turnpike in Tulsa, need some additional work. We're going to do some work on what we call the Hakey Creek bridges, but I think people will more closely recognize them as the bumpy bridges over toward Broken Arrow. And we're going to do a major rehab on those, really smooth those up, and add some additional interchanges throughout our network, as well as, like I said, those new routes that are on the south side of the metro. That's what Access Oklahoma is. It was announced as a 15-year long-range plan. We started that timeline in January 2022, and so that's our 15 years. And we announced it as a $5 billion program that was in those days dollars, using estimates for quantities of materials from 2021, understanding that there would be some inflation. Obviously, that cost has gone up along with everything else that's costs have gone up on over the course of the last 4 years. So we're making some adjustments, and most recently that's shown itself in a toll increase that we had passed yesterday at the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority board meeting.
Those toll increases over the last few years have been pretty significant. I mean, look at Big Cabin to Veneta went from 75 cents to $8.75. And I know a lot of folks in that particular area have gone, what? Why? How?
Yeah, so the Turnpike Authority has only raised tolls 11 times in its history. Most recently, we did a toll increase that was 12.5% in 2016, in March of 2016. We then followed that up with another toll increase that was in 2018 that was 2.5%. And the latest one was in 2019 that was 2.5%, but that only affected cash customers. Most of our customers are Pike Pass customers, especially the people who live in our state. We think that it's closer to like 95%. If you're an Oklahoman and you routinely drive on the turnpike, chances are you have a Pike Pass. And so we've been trying to keep those low. Historically, we're in the bottom tier of how cheap our tolls are in our state when compared to the national average. National average today is going to be around 22 cents a mile, and in Oklahoma we're going to average 6 cents a mile, depending on the road that you're on and depending on the distance that you drive. It's about 6 cents a mile here. This toll increase that we're implementing that will start January 1, on average, is a penny a mile for those customers that have a Pike Pass.
So that'll go from 6 cents a mile to 7 cents a mile.
Yes, that's correct. On average, across our network, we're going from 6 cents a mile to 7 cents a mile. And the reason I keep referencing the average, some of our toll roads are less than that, closer to a nickel, and there's a lot of our rural toll roads that are closer to that. But the urban roads, the Kilpatrick and the Creek, have tolls that are higher.
How much higher than the 6 or 7 cents a mile?
Yeah, they're about 11 cents a mile, and that just has to do with the number of entrances and exits, and them being so close together. Somebody gets on the road and only drives a couple of miles, it's really not worth tolling 20 cents, right? So there's some of those have a minimum charge that are tolled that way.
When it comes to raising the money that it's going to take for this 15-year project, and with the inflation that you've experienced, what is the percentage of inflation? Do you have that?
Over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen in our construction estimates, and we use ODOT's numbers and the Turnpike Authority's bid dollar amounts. We've tracked about 60% increase in costs over the last 4 or 5 years. We are only funded through toll.
60%.
Yes, 60%. That's correct. Yeah, the Turnpike Authority is not funded through any tax dollars. So the money that you pay at the pump, the money that you pay in excise tax or registration fees for your vehicle, the Turnpike Authority doesn't receive any of those. So the only way that we're able to pay for a program and to reinvest back into ourselves is through a toll increase, and that's what this step in the process is.
And when it comes to the plate pay folks, how much of an increase are those folks going to see? Because
So
to give
yeah.
you an idea, I have an aunt who's coming for Christmas, and she refers to Oklahoma as the only state she knows of with a cover charge.
So the plate pay rates as a percentage go up the same amount as the pike pass rates as a percentage. There are going to be a few rounding things that exist. Because we're all electronic now. Charging to the nearest nickel isn't nearly as important as it used to be when we were collecting coins in a lane. So there are some rounding things that are going to affect that percentage, but it's very, very close.
So it's still in that 6 or 5 to 11 cents a mile, depending on which particular stretch you're on.
Yeah, so the plate pay cost is about double the pike pass rate, and there's a reason for that. So it's going to be in the 10 to 20 cents a mile category. But what I would reference you to is that the cost of collecting plate pay transactions is significantly more than it is to do pike pass. And it was the same for cash collection. Very recently we converted the Will Rogers Turnpike going up to Joplin from Tulsa to plate pay, and we took out the coin machines and the toll collectors. And the reality there is, as traffic has transitioned to pike pass, it was getting really expensive to collect the cash in the lanes. So what we've done now is it is a double cost for plate pay, but that includes the cost of taking the picture, reading the picture of the license plate, the lookup of that license plate and the registered owner. It includes printing an invoice, putting it in an envelope that has to be purchased, and then putting a stamp on it. And if you've mailed anything lately, you know that stamps are more expensive now than they've ever been. And so we do all of that, and that is all inclusive in that cost that's about double for a plate pay transaction.
We'll go back to the 60% inflation on construction costs. Can you break that down in some categories for us? Give us an idea, because 60% is a really big number.
Yeah, so when the access program was originally estimated, we were using per mile costs. We weren't getting down in the nitty gritty of the design. As we've progressed some of the design projects, we're dialing in exactly what those quantities are. And the major quantities for a highway construction project are going to include the earthwork that has to occur, the cost of asphalt, concrete, and steel that's inclusive in the bridge design typically. Not to mention the cost of property acquisition that may need to be necessary for certain projects. The cost of purchasing property is up significant in the last 4 or 5 years as well. So all inclusive of those items, and fuel charge, that's another one I just thought of, the cost of fuel. So as fuel changes in price over the course of a project, we do adjust that for the ongoing project to take some of the risk out of the project for the contractor themselves when they're submitting that bid. So those are the top 4 or 5 material costs that we track. Another one obviously is labor. There are no labor categories that have had a decrease in the hourly wage. They've all gone up in the last 4 or 5 years. So inclusive of all of those, that's where that 60% comes from.
Just so folks are aware, these projects are not built by state workers. They're bid out to independent contractors.
Correct. We follow the state's competitive bidding act. We put together a set of plans, engineering plans. We actually hire a third party to do that. We have a very small group of people that work at the Turnpike Authority. We contract that out, have the plans developed. we then bid that out and through a low bid process, select a qualified contractor to do the work. And that's usually the low bid, almost always the low bid. And that's how we end up with contractors working on our system.
Now, one question that we get a lot at the Problem Solvers is, hey, when they built the turnpike between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they told us it would be paid off in like 20 years and it would be free, but we're still paying for it. Why?
So the Turnpike Authority, when it was originally introduced into the state, it was just to build the Turner Turnpike between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. The interstate system did not exist. All of the 4-lane divided and 6-lane divided highways that you currently drive on probably daily did not exist in our state. Matter of fact, some of the state highways in our state were still dirt, some were gravel, and some were paved. The only 4-lane divided sections were of Route 66 in Tulsa and in Oklahoma City. So the Turner Turnpike was very innovative at the time, and it was the first 4-lane divided high-speed roadway west of the Mississippi River. When it was built, it was a feat of engineering and of contract. The first bonds were sold that were $33 million, and they were on a 30-year note. And it is true that when the Turner Turnpike was built, the thought was when those bonds are paid off, they'll be turned over to the highway department at the time, what you know as the Department of Transportation. But something changed right after the Turnpike Authority built the Turner, and that was that the legislature put to a vote of the people by referendum in 1954, a vote of the people that said, look, if you want a 4-lane divided highway, the State Department's not going to be able to do that with tax dollars anytime soon. So we can leverage a Turnpike Authority that cross pledges, and that's how the Will Rogers Turnpike that goes up to Joplin, the Indian Nation Turnpike, the H.E. Bailey, and the Muskogee were first introduced. And those turnpikes were all built in the 1960s, late 50s, 60s, up to the Cimarron Turnpike in 1975. And through that cross pledging, we sell bonds, and when you pay a toll on the Turnpike network in our state, it goes to all of the bonds. And we've paid off bonds continually after we've issued them. You'll hear that we do refinance bonds only when there is ultimately savings to the turnpike. We don't extend the term of that bond reissuance. And what that does is it saves the Turnpike Authority money, which has allowed us to keep a very low toll rate as it relates to the rest of the nation. So the reason that we still have tolls in Oklahoma is because you also pay one of the lowest motor fuel taxes in the country. We're in fact the 4th lowest motor fuel tax in the United States. There are 3 lower, that is Hawaii, Alaska, and New Mexico, and New Mexico is only a half cent lower. So we have leveraged paying tolls and doing the user fee. Strictly, if you drive on it, you pay for it. If you don't drive on it, you don't pay for the turnpikes in our state. So that's the model that Oklahoma has chosen. I worked at the Department of Transportation for 15 years. I've built tax-supported highways. They're no different. The costs are the same. The products that are built are the same. So it's just a model that our state has chosen to use, and we continue to utilize it today.
Righty. Let's get back to the inflation that's going to be on this project. It's 60%. That takes it from X dollar to what X dollar?
So again, when we announced the program, it was $5 billion in 2021 dollars, really, and that was announced at the very beginning, very end of 2021, very beginning of 2022. And what we're now saying is $8.2 billion, and that is with the stack of receipts. That's inclusive of work that's been done both in the past and everything that will be done in the future. Through the end of this program, it's $8.2 billion. In order for that number to go down, the projects have to outrun inflation. We assume inflation to be about 2.5% to 3% annually. So we're projecting a 6% every other year toll increase to adjust for that. So if the program moves faster and some of the cost estimates go down, then the overall program would be cheaper. If it costs more, if the inflation is higher than that, then the program could take longer to deliver. The reality there is these are all necessary improvements. The Turner Turnpike needs to be widened. The Will Rogers Turnpike needs to be widened, and these new routes need to be built along with all the other things that are in the access plan. We will monitor the costs of that program as we administer it, and if we need to, we'll make adjustments in that toll rate going forward. We obviously look forward to a date that inflation is much less, the program and all the projects are built, and then obviously there wouldn't need to be any toll increases into the future once we've established a steady rate of what our revenues are, sometime in the future, inclusive of the new roads that get open.
In terms of this last 4-year period where inflation went up significantly more, I mean, 10 times more than your estimated percentage rate. If we hit more, excuse me, if we hit more of these hiccups, we can expect the cost per person per mile to go up as well. But right now, the projection is for that not to happen again, correct? And that wasn't anticipated when this was originally proposed.
Yeah, well, I don't think that anybody could guess what COVID was going to do both to the economy and to the value of the U.S. dollar. And as I sit here today, that's a variable we would have to solve for in the future. We make adjustments to this every day and all the time, and are paying attention to it. We have made a commitment through this board meeting yesterday that we would take a look at that toll rate every year, and every other year would make an adjustment. So, barring something else like COVID happening, it should be pretty normal going forward.
Anything we haven't touched on that will help people understand what these costs are and why they suddenly went so out of the stratospheric?
Anything else? I mean, that's the inflation is the big one, I think. So
Inflation, you're really only increasing by like 21, you said that.
yeah, I think one of the things that everybody needs to realize is this is a penny a mile increase to take the Turner Turnpike from a 4-lane highway that was built in 1953 to the new modern lit. We can raise the speed limit. It's much, much safer. I think everybody needs to realize that's just a penny more a mile on the Turner Turnpike, and that's what we're trying to establish, and that's the bar that we're trying to set going forward, is that we're going to have the most innovative and modern corridors on our turnpike network when compared to other states.
Okay. Last but not least, what areas are under construction right now that I could go out and get some video of that are part of this project?
Yeah, so there are 3 active construction projects that currently exist. They're all on the Turner Turnpike currently. One is at Wellston, where we are doing some interchange work. We've got a project that's at Stroud, where we are doing a service plaza modernization, replacing the old antiquated fueling station that's there. And then the last one is very close to Tulsa. It's east of Bristow, and that's where we're currently doing the 4-lane to 6-lane conversion. There's about 6.5 miles that's under construction there, and there are several good locations. I think you can get some good video at in that area. And those are the only ones that are currently under construction. We've got 2 more projects that are about to start in January. One that's here in Oklahoma City that's on the John Kilpatrick Turnpike, just off the end of the Turner. The other one, though, is on the Muskogee Turnpike, there around near to Muskogee.
Okay. And Lisa, could you send over